Hello and welcome to the award-winning MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, founder-editor of Mediabrief.com, and this is our platinum episode, number 75 of our award-winning series, and I'm truly delighted to welcome to a very special milestone episode, a distinguished guest. Please join me as I welcome the amazing Tania Yuki, Comscore's Global Chief Marketing Officer and EVP of Digital at the company that stands apart from and above all other measurement providers when it comes to web metrics, video metrics, and to measuring social media engagement. Tania, welcome to MVP, the Master's Voice podcast, and thank you for gracing our 75th Platinum episode.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited for today's conversation. Thank you for having me, Pavan.
You're most welcome, Tania, and thank you for giving me so much time today. You're connected with me all the way from New York and I'm in Mumbai. So truly, digital and virtual recordings are great, aren't they? Tania, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But before we get on to let me warn you, the long list of questions I have for you, allow me to tell my listeners about you, all the wonderful work that you've done and the excellence that you bring to the Comscore and the digital measurement table across geographies. Because, you head marketing for Comscore globally. So, by your leave, here goes. My distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast is Tania Yuki, Chief Marketing Officer, the Global Head of Marketing at Comscore and also EVP Digital at Comscore. Comscore, as every digital marketer must know, is a trusted partner for planning, transacting, and evaluation of media across platforms. Tania is a tech founder and entrepreneur with a strong commercial and marketplace focus, a massive love of data, and experience driving innovation in insights-focused businesses. And Tania drives marketing for Comscore across the world and is one of the most respected experts in the space. Tania began her career as a media and internet attorney, specializing in digital rights management, IP, and film financing. Since moving to the US from Australia, Tania has run an online video content network as head of acquisitions and branding, led product management for Comscore's video metrics, and has become an active member of the World Economic Forum's Media and Entertainment Council. Prior to founding Shareablee, Tania led product management for Comscore's Video Metrix, the world's leading online video and CTV rating service, and was also VP Advertiser Solutions at Visible World, which was acquired by Comcast. Tania also founded Wimlink in 2008, an organization that holds regular events and seminars in the New York area promoting entrepreneurship, leadership, and the professional development of women. So that's Tania Yuki, Chief Marketing Officer and EVP of Digital at Comscore and one of the most respected experts in her space, my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. So Tania, welcome once again, and let's begin our conversation, shall we?
That sounds wonderful, and you're way too kind. Very excited to chat today.
Yes, indeed, Tania, and I'm very happy too. And thanks very much to your excellent teammates, Roberta and Rodrigo, for having made this interaction possible. One's in London and one's in Mexico maybe. So wow. So Tania, even today, as it also was in the days of yore, marketing has remained about something that's unchanged, and that is customer awareness and customer acquisition. And for that, marketers need measurement. Measurement is indeed the golden word. No, let me add, accurate and true measurement. And when I use that string of words, Tania, there's but one name that springs to mind: Comscore. And I'm speaking from a digital marketplace that is infested with mom and pop measurement shops that peddle artificially created perception for small media sales and, small media entities, and especially for the smaller, totally unmeasured media verticals. But that's another story. Tania, I am aware that Comscore is the gold standard, not just for website MMX or, media metrics measurements across desktop and mobile, but it is also, to my mind, the only Swiss Army knife of measurement. It measures everything, that's relevant and vital for any marketer who needs real measurement data and insights from your measurement of cross-platform audiences to help marketers make holistic plans that make advertising so much more valuable. So my question after that long prelude, Tania, is what platforms does Comscore measure? What are its USPs and strengths that make it, as I firmly believe, such a trusted currency for media planners, buyers, marketers across platforms? Please, tell my listeners about Comscore and the magic of measurement that guides media investments at scale and with profit and purpose. Take it away.
Well, firstly, I adore the Swiss Army knife of measurement. So I'm definitely going to take that. You introduced me as the marketer, but I think I'm going to jump in. I've got all sorts of amazing imagery around that. So Comscore, I think you put it really, really well, right? Comscore is focused on measuring the connected consumer wherever he or she is or they at any given point in time. So what that's meant traditionally for us is that we've measured, and we continue to measure the global web, desktop, mobile, of course, with the acquisition of the company that I founded last year, actually the year before last at the end. We also introduced a whole slew of deep measurements around social. And of course, globally, we also have different implementations across connected television. That was something we rolled out in the Indian market last year, which we're very, very excited about. And for different markets, we have linear and other platforms as well. Audio streaming, of course. So think of it as if you're a marketer or a media company who wants to understand how the consumer is moving across screens and devices, we're really the partner to help you connect those dots and connect meaningfully with that consumer across those experiences.
Right. Tania, I also saw that you're helping marketers to, and I quote from your website, okay, gauge all your audience's emotion with Comscore's new Insights on Total Digital, which is available in English and Spanish right now as we speak. And that's unique. What's that about, Tania, and how do you gauge audience emotion in their digital journey?
Great question, and thank you for checking out the website. That's a continuation of our core mission, which is to sort of understand the media experiences of the connected consumer. Getting at emotion also ties to a lot of what we do with advertising effectiveness and campaign measurement, right? We don't only want to count the number of exposures or the number of people who received a piece of content or an ad. We also want to help content creators, agencies, and brands understand what that experience was like. Did this content move people? Do they feel differently? Did it change their attitude about a brand that was part of that experience? So in the case of Pulse, which is what you were reading about, that's leveraging all of the millions and millions of comments that we collect across platforms like different social media platforms to distill what emotions, those words and phrases that they're expressing could tell you about how they're feeling about that content. So it's one part, deep consumer insights. It's one part advertising effectiveness measurement. And it's a new feature that we're very excited to bring into the Comscore suite.
I really think, the ability to gauge, your brands or your customers or your clients' audience's emotion with Comscore's new Insights on Total Digital is really going to empower the marketplace. And I know it's early days yet, but sometime maybe we'll come back and we'll look at some kind of case studies on how it's been helping. But for now, Tania, let's continue and let me ask you my next question. Given your background, Tania, in founding Shareablee, which Comscore acquired just over a year ago, and before leaving to create Shareablee, you also worked with Comscore, honing and sharpening its excellent MMX or Mediametrics measurement service. So you're a rare expert, and I'd like to, ask you to now walk us quickly through the three important pillars of Comscore's empowerment of digital marketers. Comscore's MMX or Mediametrics first. How does that work, And what do you measure there? Unique visitors and time spent. I know these two are the basics, but what else? Give me a quick deep dive, and excuse the oxymoron, but tell me about the lineage, the offerings, and the performance and growth of MMX, and with special reference to India, if you will. I think even today, despite its excellent history and deliveries, young digital marketers must know about MMX from Comscore, and to me, it's the gold standard. Any marketer, any brand says, I have so many visitors, I say, show me your Comscore panel. Do you have the guts to do that? And if they can do that, then they are right on top of the heap as far as I'm concerned, as really great, solid marketers and brands who create real engagements to empower their businesses. So tell me about MMX. Just walk me through that. And that is for the younger marketers who don't really know much about it. Perhaps some of them might not.
Thank you. So Mediametrix is Comscore's sort of OG original flagship product. It was the first Comscore product that I used as a client many years ago. And Mediametrix's mission is to quantify, shed light on the total digital universe in a market. So exactly some of the metrics that you talked about, unique visitors, time spent, anything that helps you understand frequency of visitation, right? Because, a site that has 100 million visits and 100 million unique visitors is a very different site than a site that has 100 million visits and 10 million unique visitors, right? That's a much more engaged audience, a much smaller one, but much more engaged. So we really help cut through some of the big numbers that people tout out there to shed light on what meaningful visitation looks like, what quality looks like. And, some of the things that we've pioneered over the years have been cutting through the clutter of fake traffic or bot traffic or just anything which a marketer shouldn't take into account when they're thinking about assessing the very best partners to reach their consumers. So that's, very much the heritage of the product.
Right.
It's all sourced. We measure, of course, critical markets like the Indian market for all of these cornerstone metrics. And then we leverage our global panel, which if listeners are not familiar with how panels work, that's basically independent, wholly owned things that we ask consumers to opt into so that we can measure them with consent. And in that case, you get a lot of really rich information around demographics and all of the different things that a consumer is doing across many touch points. And then we combine that with site level tagging. So independent sites can tag their entities and their pages, and then Comscore combines all of this together into measurement. That was an approach that we pioneered very early, and that we're actually now in the process of doing another innovation around to account for many of the critical global changes that have been happening around privacy, so that, again, marketers and media companies can measure with confidence and make investments with confidence.
Absolutely. It's really going to help the marketplace even more, because honestly, all the media spends definitely and desperately need gold standard currency against which, or the reference of which, the numbers, the ratings and the numbers that Comscore gives against which to do their, make all their media investments and even assess the kind of impact that they've made. Great. Which brings me to the second pillar of Comscore's offerings, Tania. Measurement of the growing medium of video consumption. That's VMX or Mediametrix for video consumption. So please tell me about that.
So also a product that's very near and dear to me, one that I sort of nursed from spreadsheet through to syndicated product again in my last tour of Comscore the first time. What was really important about Videometrix, and I think is even more important today, is, firstly, when we were first developing the product, it was like, how fast could we be about picking up things that shouldn't have been measured, right? So everyone's always trying to do things that bump up their numbers so that they can be a top 10 entity. And a big part of my job was, if someone's site was skyrocketing, it's like, okay, either they suddenly became the best video content producer in the country or something's up. So you're looking for pop under videos and all these different strategies. And, you really have to be close to the measurement to make sure that you're giving a very, very accurate and trustworthy account of what's happening in the video ecosystem, because a lot of money is being transacted on your ability to get this right? So it's something that we take very, very seriously. And over time, of course, accounting for different video types, layering in connected television, and then continuing to think about what's next. A big reason why Comscore acquired the company that I built was also just how important and critical social video is in this total ecosystem as well. But Metrix plays a very similar role to Mediabrief as the currency to help shed light on what's happening in the video ecosystem, and how a marketer, can assess different video partners to make investments to connect with consumers over wonderful video experiences.
Absolutely. I think VMX is going to be one of the most important categories of measurement in India, because video is not just in India but globally. About what Facebook said about a couple of years back, if I'm not mistaken, that 90 to 95% of all their content that was being consumed on Facebook was in the video form. And YouTube is the world's biggest platform with 312 or 320 odd million people coming in every day. So yes, absolutely. Tell me, Tania, how have advertisers, especially programmatic buyers and human media buyers, benefited from using the VMX data?
The biggest benefit, there's macro benefits, right? Because they're hearing things like, hey, you've got to invest around this new trend, or, my client wants to do this because they heard about it at a conference or whatever. So on the one hand, products like Metrix and Mediabrief help support those hunches with data or not, right? So it helps them guide their investments based on what's actually happening, and helps them place smart bets. But I think even more important on specific levels, it's a trust but verify platform, right? It's like when you talk to any site owner, they have their internal numbers, they're passionate about what they do, of course. But when you're spending a lot of money placing these investments, you need another source to help you double check, what you're actually hearing in that process and make sure that you're making the right decisions for your client. So that's really where we come in. We can support with data what's really happening from a demographics, from an engagement standpoint. And depending on what someone's trying to achieve, different sites can be so much more effective than others, even within existing campaigns. So that's really our role, is to help shed light on how marketers can succeed and how video publishers can also understand their audience so that they're putting their best foot forward across any of the different buying environments, and just maximizing the value of their audiences as well.
Excellent, Tania. I know these are very early days yet, and you are, Comscore is creating the category of video consumption and engagement measurement in India. I sincerely believe you are actually creating that category of measurement, because I know there are some small little entities which give kind of measurement, and the only thing is that those who are subscribing to them end up somehow, coincidentally perhaps, I'm not making any accusations, but right on top of that measured list. So yes, these are early days, and you are investing in, creating the category of video consumption and engagement measurement in India. But all your services are of immense relevance to both businesses and individuals. But right now you are a B2B service. So how do you approach and market to your target groups? What kind of pricing or tiers of, measurement services and insights, if any, do you offer in India? I think marketers would really want to know that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So this is something that we are very, very excited to partner in each market in the right way and to work with, so Geet, who works across the Indian market with us, is really focused on thinking about how to make sure that we're putting packages and the right offerings to reflect the reality of this, the whole gamut of agencies, individuals, a category like influencers that N number of years ago wasn't a thing, but today is just exploding in the Indian market. And we want to help grow that space, right? We want to make sure that we're pricing and packaging our solutions to support the kind of growth across spaces like influencers and creators, just like we've done with television and publishing. So that's really our model. As you alluded to, it's we produce software solutions in a B2B manner. However, we have incredible teams that are also really excited to partner with our clients and make sure that the way that we're thinking about these insights is the way that is going to help them drive their businesses and make great decisions or represent their inventory. So, that's something that we're really collaborating very closely with our clients and with the marketplace. And as we continue to learn, you can expect even more from us in terms of offerings that reflect the realities of such a critical market like India for us.
Okay, so you haven't put any absolute numbers to your pricing, etc. So how does a digital marketer try and source that information, get in touch with you through the site?
Yeah, absolutely. Our team's ready to talk with anyone. We just always want to make sure we're designing that right solution for each individual, but it's a very, very simple and pain-free process.
And right now it's B2B. What about, like you mentioned, influencers, for instance, individuals who also want to be measured and who want that certification, because Comscore is the gold certification. It's the hallmark as far as digital is concerned. So can an individual influencer come to you and say, I really want you to measure the kind of engagement I get, and will I get the certificate? Do you have those kind of smaller customers that you're willing to help?
Absolutely, we sure do. And that's something we already do in other markets where we rolled out influencer reporting. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal, I think B2B is a very, very broad category. And even B2B is B2B to C, right? Because you can never truly sell to a business. It's always people. Anyone who either on, for their own footprint, like an influencer, all the way through to much larger companies, need to find trustworthy data sets to transact. And the influencer space is something that I'm very passionate about, also because, influencers put all of their heart and soul into creating content. And we also want to make sure that they have insights that can give them an equal footing when they have negotiations, and that they can be valuing their footprints, effectively. Like, I know when we were first developing our influencer products, I spoke to many influencers ranging from, very small micro influencers all the way through to much larger influencers. And without exception, while those influencers had a sense of their bigger numbers, like their follower counts and others, they were never sure exactly what the criteria was that they were being selected on and judged on, and were always really hungry to lean into data in that way so that they could, again, be more prepared and help their brand partners make the right decisions with them. So that's, we believe that that's a big growth space and one that we're very passionate about.
Excellent. Tania, I believe that Comscore is truly evangelizing digital marketing measurement in India particularly. And it is early days, but I hope that your VMX service truly grows. We need it to here in India. Which brings us to the third and today very important part of Comscore services in India, which is the measurement of social engagement through Shareablee, which you created, Tania. So tell us about that.
Perfect. Thank you, Pavan, for the question. So yes, I seem to be saying this on all of your answers, but social is another space that is also very near and dear to me. It was what I essentially left Comscore the first time to do, which was to, build a new way of measuring social media engagement. But, just to give you some reasons why this is such an important space.
Yes.
Time spent with social media sites has almost tripled since 2019 in the Indian market, right? Almost tripled. Like, that's just unprecedented kind of growth. And yes, it through the pandemic, but we're seeing at Comscore so much that, we saw these big levels jump up during the pandemic, but then they've gone back to levels that are significantly higher than they were pre-pandemic. So these are consistently changed behaviors of different media consumption patterns and others, and so much of that is playing out in the social media space. So we believe that in order to truly capture the digital consumer, which is really just the consumer these days, that many of these social media platforms are just so critical. So that's a big passion point, and even if you think at the Indian market, right? So no surprise, huge social media market, but we're seeing some different skews, right? Like, it isn't just Gen Z, as a lot of press would have you believe, right? So if I look at the user profile across the social media category from Comscore's Metrics, you've got 58% male audiences across all social, but only 20% of that is Gen Z.
Wow.
Right? So it's like a full 19% of that is Gen X. For women, pretty similar numbers, right? Like 13% of that is Gen Z, 16% of that is Gen X. So it really is mainstreaming. And marketers need to understand what those trends are so that they can shift their behaviors. Without data, you're just listening to gossip, right? You're just listening to hunches and gossip and what you heard, from someone, who just heard it from someone else with their panel size of one. And it's terrifying that millions of dollars could get transacted on that basis, but it does. And again, that's why companies like Comscore and, why I was excited to come back to Comscore, because that's really our mission, is to, ensure that we are making the advertising and content ecosystem sustainable, better for marketers, and ultimately better for consumers. Because if a marketer understands who a consumer is and what they care about, their chances of putting something in front of them that is meaningful is much greater. And that just makes everything a better experience.
And it closes the loop really nicely.
Right.
I think you all measure 6 social media platforms, right, on Shareablee?
Gosh, it's always changing, right? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch. Yeah, you're right.
Excellent. And so relevant to all. You measure all the important platforms. And yes, TikTok is not available in India, but why not LinkedIn? Are they cagey about, and that's my word, not yours, about sharing their data?
Oh, no. I mean, so we're exploring new integrations all the time. LinkedIn is actually something, so earlier on there wasn't a gettable API, but they've been actually doing a lot of work around that because marketers have been leaning in, very closely with LinkedIn. It used to be, many years ago, it used to be predominantly for employer brand and recruiting. But we're actually seeing many marketers lean in much more broadly than that. So that's definitely a priority platform that we're investigating. Really our MO around this is just to be adaptable. I mean, we've over the years, measured Tumblr and, rest in peace Google Plus and rest in peace Vine and, Meerkat and all of the others. So, we're definitely listening to what we're hearing from marketers and, trying to get going on new platforms as well as new use cases for existing critical platforms. So no, yeah, LinkedIn is definitely on the radar right now.
Lovely. More strength to you, Tania. And that brings me to my next observation / question, Tania. Google is now actually sharing its data from YouTube with Comscore. So now Comscore gets YouTube consumption data, which it uses in its measurement. So tell me about that. What's it been like for you and your team at Comscore and Shareablee working with Google on this account? And how does that augur for the digital marketer in India?
Thank you, Pavan. So that's a great question. So Comscore and Google have had a very long-standing partnership. You know, Google's obviously a critical piece of initially the digital ecosystem and now, of course, of the television ecosystem as well, with many of their newer offerings. So we had partnered, like this actually rolled out in my absence, so I wasn't at Comscore at the time, but I know when we first launched Metrix, YouTube was also, of course, a critical partner. You can't possibly imagine thinking of the video ecosystem without YouTube. So it was really, a question of collaborating. So what the collaboration enables is to report on YouTube channels, like publishers' YouTube channels. And that was really important because if I'm a publisher, I'm putting so much effort into growing my YouTube audiences, putting, some of my best content on YouTube to continue to grow my views and my reach. And really, our clients wanted to make sure that they were getting fair credit apportioned to them for all of that audience activity. So the partnership is really about making sure that individual publishers can also sort of express their YouTube footprint as part of their total footprint. And that's also, something that we're looking at for other channels as well. But that was really a critical one, and I know that it's very important for the Indian market as well to have that credit and that apportionment.
Amazing. How do you have the ability to verify the data that Google shares with you on YouTube? Not because there could be some attempt to sort of not give you the correct data, not at all. I'm not even imputing that, but to avoid human error in the transmission. So are you able to verify the data?
Yeah, so I'd say the way that I would answer that question is true for everything that we measure in our syndicated digital product. So if it shows up in Mediabrief, if it shows up in Metrix, like it always is combined with our core measurement capabilities. So we need to see things within our panel and others, because again, we always need to make sure that there's measurement that we can stand behind, and that, we sort of know what the ingredients are. So that's true for, every integration that we have.
That's amazing. Let's turn YouTube for another question, Tania. India Today Group is India's #1 general news video publisher, and it is heartening. It's a really wonderful moment of pride, actually, for me as an Indian, that their brand Aaj Tak, it was the first slightly earlier this year, to cross 50 million subscribers on YouTube globally in news. A brand from India, Aaj Tak, having the world number one news YouTube channel. And that's a warm and fuzzy feeling for any Indian, and especially for someone like me who also knows the great work that the India Today Group does. And that world #1 YouTube channel is Comscore certified, which is amazing. So how do you see India growing and setting global benchmarks in this space?
What we're seeing, particularly across the Indian market, and I'll jump in on some Comscore stats for Aaj, because I likewise was looking at this and was really just blown away by some of the numbers. But it's really, it's about local creators understanding the needs and passion points and interests of their audiences and just doubling down on it, right? When you start to see some stats, like if we look across some of the Metrix numbers as well as YouTube channel numbers, like total views in the last month have both grown double digits, right? 20% and 21% respectively. That's off of an incredibly large base.
Wow.
So that can only happen in response to great content that is being well received, that's being shared, and that continues to meet the needs of local viewers. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we're seeing happen in the Indian market is there's so much diversity of content. Our audiences are so passionate and so engaged. and are really willing to pass on great video experiences to their networks. And so you start to see that cascading effect. And great content creators are going to continue to have some of these worldwide stats just because of the massive scale of what's possible. I come from Australia. But if you go viral in Australia, it's actually quite hard to then get something that becomes a global number one just from a sheer population basis. And that's my reason, of course, for not having gone globally viral. But you know, like it really just comes down to the right content for the right audience. And unlike broadcast, when you're on a platform like YouTube or on other social channels, you're getting real-time feedback, right? You're getting comments data, you're getting real-time responses. And if you're a creator, you can understand what's popular and what your viewers want more of, and the best channels are really listening to their viewers.
Lovely. I'm sure every marketer, every digital marketer, I think it's the same today. They know and they understand that measurement is a huge and essential pillar. What are the other important digital marketing trends that you see rolling out in India or internationally, which would be really good, for all Indian marketers to sort of bring in and build into their plans?
Great question, Pavan. Thank you. Look, there's so much exciting stuff happening. You know, we already talked a little bit about the influencer trend, but that's something which, if you're a marketer and you're not leaning into the diversity and vibrancy of creator content that is out there, creators, who are already communicating with your audiences and thinking about them as part of your mix, along with some of your big scale TV networks or digipubs, then I think you're definitely missing the boat around that. I mean, that's just like if you look at, if I just zoom out and look at the social media ecosystem, creators own, let's call it 70% of all engagement.
Wow.
So it's a big, right? Yeah. The first time we started pulling those stats, I went back to my team and I was like, no, you made a mistake. Like, rerun the numbers. There's no way. So I think that's something that's very, very important. But then trends around connected television and what that's going to mean for the shape of video. Even if we look at YouTube again for a second, north of 50% of YouTube content globally is currently being consumed through connected television, right? Think about what that does to changing how you think about the YouTube experience.
Amazing.
When it's on a cell phone versus potentially on a large screen television.
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of changes everything, the kinds of ads you want to run, even the kind of content, that you would imagine the consumer viewing. So all of these sorts of experiential trends, I think, are really critical. But the basics stay the same, right? Understand your audience, have empathy for what they care about and what they're going through, and craft content, experiences, and yes, ads that don't suck, right? Because if they suck, the consumer will not tolerate it.
Absolutely.
Because the consumer's threshold for putting up with things that they don't think are worth their time, I don't know if it was ever there, but we used to think that it was in television and others. And, there was just this kind of awkward value exchange. And that's really shifted. And I think just embracing that, even though it's scary and new and listen, kind of annoying, right? Wouldn't it be great if the consumer would just behave themselves and just sit there and watch the ads, right? But that's long gone if it ever was here. And I think that also creates massive opportunities for marketers to innovate and for content creators to be more relevant than ever before.
Wonderful. I really love the wonderful overview with a lot of insights. And I'm sure that it's going to be if I may use an old world archaic print term of cut and keep. This is what you just shared with all the young marketers listening. Important, very important, and I completely agree with you. is that YouTube, now look at two things, okay? One, 5G coming out in India, the growing, expanding infrastructure, the plummeting costs of, smartphones, which are now costing perhaps what middle-sized feature phones used to cost earlier. At the same time, television costs have completely plummeted. You get a connected TV today at 10,000 rupees a set, right? So it's huge. It's waiting to explode. And what is marketing all about? I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, telling you, Tania, but it's all about creating engagements that empower businesses, right? Or whatever you want to do. And then the amazing measurement that you bring to the table. So India is on the cusp of solid growth, and I think the tier 2 and 3 and 4 markets really are where a lot of YouTube and video consumption is going to crash through the roof. So Tania, Comscore does so much, all with data, and Shareablee can respond real time too, right? So what kind of tech platform and data security does Comscore deploy? I'm sure it's Fort Knox standards, but what's the size and scale and concurrency of measurement that you can unleash whenever required?
That's a great question. Probably one that our CTO is in a better position to fully go into the details of, and I'm sure he'd love to in massive detail.
Just a bit. I mean, just the top line.
Yeah. So look, at a very high level, the good news for us when the world sort of awakened to a greater consciousness around consumer protection and privacy and, all of the things that are now very top of mind for marketers. But a couple of years ago, maybe less so, right, around compliance. Because of our legacy of building proprietary people-level panels, this has always been at the heart of our business, making sure that we're respecting the consumer, doing things in the right way, and doing things in a way that we believe was sustainable for a future that was always kind of uncertain as to how things would shape out. I think what we know to be true now, and I think what everyone more or less would not dispute, is that the consumer is firmly in control, and protecting the consumer and respecting their wishes and what they believe is acceptable from the data that they want to give up, and what they want to share has to be top of mind for anyone who's trying to reach a consumer. So for us, that means continuing to expand on what we've already done in a privacy-centric way. You'll hear a lot from us for something that sort of cookie-free measurement. That's something that we're really leaning into. We pioneered the original hybrid methodologies, and we've got some really exciting innovations that we're bringing out. We're rolling out in all of our different markets, including the Indian market. So you'll hear much more from us about that. We'll call it something. You'll hear UDM 2.0 and you'll go, what on earth is that? And that's Unified Digital Measurement. And the 2.0 is a hat tip to this being a very significant enhancement on how we originally innovated this sort of measurement methodology. So there'll be plenty more to come, but this is a very fast changing space. And again, you've alluded to this, Pavan, a couple times, and I just want to call it out. And listen, there are lots of startups doing cool and interesting things. I recently founded one, right? And I'm definitely not saying that, small companies shouldn't innovate, but when it comes to how you're going to entrust your total, budgets and your spend, it just comes down to understanding what each company is good for and what you can trust them for. And we believe we just have a very important role to play at Comscore of, being that trusted source, being someone that you can count on to do what's right, to measure things correctly, irrespective of, who our clients are. And of course, we always collaborate very closely with the marketplace, but our credibility at Comscore comes from making sure that we can help orient that North Star of what the right way to measure things are. So that's what we're going to continue to resource around and continue to grow capabilities around.
Amazing. In fact, you should say UDM 3.0, because the change that's going to happen from one, it's going to leapfrog to
I like
3.
it. Maybe 7, right? Why stop there?
No, really, very, very good. And you already told me that influencer created content accounts for approximately 70% of consumption. And when you look at the large, massive, humongous, gargantuan base in India, that's a lot. Tania, suppose I'm a subscriber to Comscore data. Do you only give that data out, or do you also provide insights and guidance that will help them plan and strategize?
It's definitely the latter. You can also choose to just get the former and just the data in a very, very self-service way.
Okay.
But we believe strongly that really making sure that we help frame up what the insight is, what the data are indicating is the right outcome is a big part of our role in market as well. And that just depending on the client, like some clients want to read the data themselves and purely form all of their hypotheses. Many, many more will do that for certain things, but frequently don't have the time because they need to be making these fast decisions and fast business decisions. I always like to use the analogy of, if you think about the weather, right? We have the meteorological report that you can read, but very often you just want to know if you should take an umbrella or if you need a coat, right, as you're leaving the door, and you don't want the full report about the cumulonimbus clouds and which direction and all of that.
Yes.
So we really do cater to that full spectrum, but particularly in recent years, we have found that clients are leaning much more into the insights and into having that be just something that has a seat at their decision-making table so that they can do what they do best, which is grow their businesses.
Lovely. There are hundreds of thousands of MSMEs, the medium and small entrepreneurs across India. And today digital is critical, is essential, and they need to be everywhere. At least reach their target cohorts on the right pipelines, to the right watering holes, etc. Right? So will Comscore ever think of, saying, all right, let me give a slightly smaller but equally incisive and helpful, strategically important service for the MSMEs, those who are registered as MSMEs, want to come to Comscore? And would you go through or with any association like TIE or some other and say, all right, we are here, we have smaller panels and we can give you a scaled down version, but this is really the gold standard. You don't have to go deploy some small or engage some small measurement or perception creation kind of service, because they are two different things we are talking about. Any thought that you would ever want to do something like that in India? Or is it that, the return on the investment is not enough and you are looking at the bigger picture and there are so many massive, large entities that need to be with you on all the other amazing services that you provide?
Yeah, thank you, Pavan, for that question. Listen, I'm definitely not the expert on the ground, but what I hear from our team and what I know that we believe at Comscore just as a company is we want our data to meet our customers where they are.
Okay.
And, you talk about this opportunity and the size and the scale of it. And it sounds like an incredible opportunity for our data to make a difference. If you have all of these businesses, driving growth, trying to make decisions, maybe they don't need the full blown enterprise suite of everything that we're capable of.
Yeah.
But I know, I used our own data when I was a startup, right? It was the way that I helped make a lot of decisions. So I would love to create and enable pieces of our offering to really help ignite growth for those companies. They're going to be the lifeblood of so much future growth. A lot of what we're seeing is smaller brands, innovations, smaller businesses are what's really sort of driving growth in many economies. And, I think we would absolutely welcome the opportunity to help add value in that space.
Wonderful, wonderful, really. I didn't expect anything else from you in response to that question. People talk about businesses driving profit. Obviously, you have to drive profit. And then also perhaps with purpose. I think the veracity, the accuracy, the infallibility of the kind of numbers that you bring are in themselves perhaps the best example of great purpose, which is empowering enterprise in India. Your measurements will ensure that wastage doesn't happen, smart decisions are made, the returns on marketing or digital or other investments are absolutely the best possible, given the measurements being very, very accurate and Comscore, end of the story. So, Tania, any example of any, from any brand, whether in India or globally, because you've been around the world and you've also been, watching India very, very closely, Tania, any brand that's seen great ROI, great positive impact on all its digital marketing, because your data has empowered it to sort of learn from and deploy the insights for creating more and more engaging or sharing more and more engaging content?
I have a great one for you, Pavan. And firstly, while we at Comscore would love to take credit for the content, for all of the content strategy and the success, we can probably take a slightly lesser role. Okay. However, our partnership with the India Today group and specifically some of the incredible milestones that we've been seeing, the Aaj channel hit, they've worked very closely with our team measuring across media metrics and video metrics. They were one of the first to dive in with CTV measurement and also social measurement in the Indian market. Right. And as you can see, even knowing something like and being able to confirm something like a global world #1 position for their channel, it has been made possible through that collaboration. But that's a partnership we're very proud of and very excited about, and really leaning into on both sides.
Lovely. So even the big can become the biggest. You need data to guide you, numbers to guide you.
And it's a great call out because, sometimes we've been asked, well, gosh, if someone's #1, why do they even need to bother, having data? And you're like, the second you become #1, you are the #1 target for everyone else who wants to become #1.
Absolutely. And you need to stay there.
Right. If you think for a second you can just sit pretty and relax once you get to the top of the pile, think again, right? Because every day someone is waking up trying to kill you, right? And data makes sure that you understand the ins and outs and that you're always putting your best foot forward in terms of how you continue to guide your business.
Absolutely. And I think Kali and her entire team are digital mavens out there. They're doing some amazing work.
They sure are.
More strength to them. And I'm sure that all the other competitors in the space will sit up and perk up and, take notice. So, Tania, a youngster comes to you and says, ma'am, I want to work with you. At your level, you won't be looking at freshers perhaps. But a fresher comes to you, a real out of college, just graduated youngster comes to you. What will you look for apart from the educational and whatever else qualifications? What are the 2 or 3 things that must be there in the person, whether it's attitude, values, whatever? And if they're not there, then that's a deal breaker for you.
Great question. And I'll start by saying that this is true at Comscore. This was true at Shareablee. I like to meet everyone before they start with us. I trust that my team is vetting on technical skills or all the other sort of stuff, but I love to meet people.
Lovely.
For the reasons you're saying is for culture and kind of vibe to not have a better word for it. So what excites me about talent and the things that I look for in that? Well, firstly, does this person have a purpose? And what I mean by that is, do they have a strong sense of why they're here, what they're looking for, how they want to grow? Like, do they sort of have a vision for their life? Not to get too deep about it, but like, because if they don't, it's just harder, right? Like, because they're not sure what makes them happy. They're not sure what they're looking for. And oftentimes these are the people who are looking to you to tell them how to grow and how to do that. And I know, particularly putting my startup hat back on, I always viewed my job as, how can I accelerate? How can I help someone who already knows where they're going get there faster, as opposed to sit with them and opine on all of the plethora of things that they could potentially be doing. There just sort of wasn't time for that. So I look for purpose, and the purpose doesn't have to be like purely related to their role. It can be bigger than that. Beyond that, I look for energy. I think of it as do they come with their batteries included, or is a big part of my job going to be charging them up every morning, right? Because again, that's just something you can't really ignite someone who isn't already lit up from the inside. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing I look for is curiosity. We're a research and insights company, right? And if you are not falling all over yourself to understand why on earth 70% of content engagement on social is driven by creators, and if you're not immediately going, well, what kind of content? Has that changed year over year? Is that the same? Like, if these sorts of things aren't fascinating for you, you're going to be bored as hell working for us, right? Because you're just going to be surrounded by people peppering you with these sorts of questions, and you're going to find it irritating and you're going to quit. If you don't have that sort of intellectual curiosity to understand the world, then probably you're not going to be the person who's going to go that extra mile to unpack something, or to find a cool insight, or to think a little differently. And again, that's something, I think it can be taught, of course, but that also is something that's very innate. And it again speaks to, will you be happy here? Will you have a good time? Will you love it? Or will this just be a damn job for you that that you just want to get through, right? And that's never what any boss wants for their team.
It's always going to float right up like flotsam and jetsam.
It sure is.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's not good for them either, right? Like, it's not going to be good for them either. So it's bad for everyone.
And I was referring specifically to freshers, and I love the insights that you shared. Right, I'm sure that you will not expect a youngster to have his or her purpose etched and defined forever. Things change. But, the curiosity, the batteries included being lit up inside automatically, and the energy levels, that's all really you need. And that's a decent entire package, which then you can mold and, take things forward. So amazing. I've really loved talking to you, Tania. You've been smiling, your warm, sunny smile, and given me so much of time. And it's been really wonderful. It's what now? Night here in Mumbai. What's the time of day where you are? You're in New York, right?
I'm in New York, and my sunny disposition is not coming from the weather here. I trust you. It's very cold, and it's just approaching 9:30 in the morning here on Friday. So I'm just about to embark on what you've already conquered, and you're definitely too kind. You've given so much time. I absolutely love the work that you're doing with this podcast and Mediabrief. So we're very, very grateful to have this opportunity to chat with you about Comscore and everything that we're working on.
You are truly amazing, Tania. Very, very kind. Thank you for the kind words. And thanks also to some excellent people in your team. I mentioned them earlier. I didn't mention Geet, but Geet, Roberta, and of course, Rodrigo, who helped make this interaction possible. So thanks once again, and I hope to see you, Tania, when you're next in Mumbai.
Thank you to you, Pavan, for having us.
Tania Yuki, Chief Marketing Officer and EVP of Digital at Comscore, and one of the foremost experts in every kind of media measurement that no sane digital marketer can do without, was my distinguished guest on this episode of the award-winning MVP, the Master's Voice podcast from Mediabrief.com. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and found Tania's wonderful insights as helpful and inspiring as I certainly did. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on Mediabrief.com, this is the host and friend Pavan Chawla, founder, editor of Mediabrief.com, saying, take care, stay safe, stay measured. Bye-bye.